historians, welcome to Decoding the Test and a quick look at civil rights. As always, what we're going to be looking at today is just what the test has focused on over and over and over again over the years. If you wanted a complete understanding of the civil rights movement, I'd know all the details that you see on the slide in front of you. As far as the test is concerned, though, there are a couple of key areas it keeps focusing on. The Chicano mural movement, Voting Rights Act and Civil Rights Act, segregation, the various approaches to civil rights, Lyndon Johnson's Great Society programs, and finally, what we're going to take a look at today, the prior leaders of the civil rights movement. Now, when I say prior leaders, what I'm talking about is the leaders that were pushing for civil rights before the time period of the 1950s, 1960s, where we see Martin Luther King Jr. and Cesar Chavez operating. We're talking about the leaders in the early 1900s through the 1920s. Now, I've seen three of them come up. I'm going to share those three with you. The first is Booker T. Washington. Now, you're going to get something like what you see on the slide in front of you, and you notice you can't really read it that well. In fact, all you can really tell is that it says, hey, Booker T. Washington. Now, if you really focused in, you could see that it said the great Negro educator will be stopping at the following stations to deliver a series of educational addresses. That's kind of a tip that you should focus in on Booker T. Washington being an educator. The question is, how did the person named work to improve the lives of African Americans? And the answer is H. He promoted vocational training for African Americans. His focus was on education, even vocational education, to get African Americans into the workplace in greater numbers and in more diversified places than they were currently. So if you see Booker T. Washington, try to look for the education answer. Here's a question on Ida B. Wells, and you get a timeline of Ida B. Wells, talking about her first being a publisher and a co-owner, and then publishing some various works. So you might think to begin with that this is an art question. It's not. Once you get about halfway down the timeline, you see that she helped found the National Association of Colored Women, then the NAACP, then she forms a suffrage club for African American women. These achievements illustrate what Ida B. Wells was supporting equality. She was, J, an advocate of equality. And that is where she becomes best known as an advocate of equality, not only because she's founding or helping to found civil rights organizations like the NAACP, but also you notice she's supporting suffrage, women's suffrage, so it's equality in general. Finally, you're going to probably get a question on W.E.B. Du Bois, and here you actually get a quote about him. And the question is, how did he combat prejudice? Basically, what did W.E.B. Du Bois do as part of the civil rights movement? And the answer is B. He establishes an early civil rights group. He helps establish an early civil rights group. So when you're looking at the prior leader questions, W.E.B. Du Bois, Ida Wells, Booker T. Washington, they'll probably come up. You need to know that Booker T. Washington is most closely associated with education. You need to know that Ida B. Wells is most closely associated with not only equality for African Americans, but also for women. And you need to know that W.E.B. Du Bois has a large role to play in forming those organizations like the NAACP that would fight for civil rights in the 50s and 60s. If there's no questions, comments, or screams of angst, I will see you guys in the next video.